Dream of the Red Chamber, Chapter 50.
I want you to close your eyes for a second and just picture this.
Okay.
It is the dead of winter, and, deep, heavy snow piling up against the windows of a place called Ashy Ridge. It's freezing outside.
The kind of cold that hurts your face.
Exactly, but inside, it is absolutely perfectly cozy. You're at the Warren Scent Studio. There's the smell of roasted venison in the air. Hot wine is being poured.
And the room is filled with incense smoke. It's the perfect winter sanctuary.
It is, but here's the thing. This isn't just some cozy dinner party where everyone's making small talk about the weather.
No, not at all.
You are surrounded by your smartest, quickest-witted friends and family, and you are all about to engage in a game. But we're not talking, charades here.
Or Pictionary.
This is a high-stakes, high-speed poetry battle, where if you stumble, you get mocked, and if you win, you are basically a legend.
It really is the ultimate depiction of intellectual play. Today we're looking at a very specific, very famous moment from the classic novel Dream of the Red Chamber, Chapter 50.
The chapter is often called The Snow, the Verse, and the Venison. And honestly, looking at the source material, this feels less like a dusty old book and more like, a competitive sport.
Oh, absolutely.
It's got adrenaline, it's got trash talk, and it's got consequences.
It absolutely does. And what's fascinating here is that the source text actually opens with a bit of meta-commentary that frames the whole thing.
Oh, interesting.
There's a famous annotation in the Gentian version of the text, right at the start of this scene, and it talks about the tension between order and chaos.
Order and chaos? That sounds pretty heavy for a party scene.
It is, but it's crucial. The commentator notes that the scene is set up to look like it's going to be very orderly. They want to write poetry in a specific sequence, but then the note says it must follow order, yet it doesn't follow order. It's basically signaling that the energy of the characters is going to just break the rules of the game.
I love that. It's like saying, we have rules, but we are absolutely going to break them. So let's set the stage. The group is gathered at the Warm Scent Studio. They've decided to write a linked verse poem. Now, before we get into the drama, we need to explain what linked verse actually is, because when I first read this, I thought, okay, everyone just writes a poem. But it's way more complicated than that.
Oh, it's technically brutal. Think of it like a relay race, but you're running backwards.
Okay, walk me through it. How does it work?
So in a standard linked verse game, person A writes the first line, let's say a 7-character line.
Right.
Person B has to step in and provide the second line to finish that couplet. So they have to rhyme with person A and complete that thought. But then person B also has to write the first line of the next couplet to set up person C.
Whoa, so you're constantly looking backward to finish someone else's thought and then looking forward to tee up the next person.
Exactly. You have to be hyper-aware of the rhyme scheme, the tonal shift, the whole narrative. If person A writes about a mountain and you finish that line, you can't just pivot to talking about, a grocery store in your next line.
Not unless you make it flow perfectly.
Right. It requires an immense amount of mental RAM.
That sounds exhausting. So everyone is getting ready to do this mental gymnastics. Baoyu, who is usually the responsible one, the type A personality, she suggests they draw lots to determine the order. She wants structure. She wants a nice, orderly lineup.
She's trying to impose civilization on the chaos.
But then we get our first disruption. Wang Shufeng, or Fengji. Now, I love Fengji. She's the manager of the household. She's sharp. She's powerful. But she is famously not bookish.
Not like the others.
She didn't have the same classical education. So when she interrupts and says, hey, I want to start, I admit, my first thought was, is she just crashing the party? Is she just trying to be the boss?
That's a common interpretation.
Yeah.
But I think it misses what's actually happening. She knows she's an outsider to this specific literary game. She even admits it.
Right. She says, I only have one crude phrase.
Exactly. She knows she isn't a poet, but she wants to play. She wants to be part of the joy.
So she throws out her opening line, overnight the north wind blew tight.
Overnight the north wind blew tight.
And the room goes wild for it. They praise it instantly. Now, be honest with me. Are they just sucking up to her because she controls their allowances?
I really don't think so. The source material explains this really well through the other characters' reactions. They say, this phrase is coarse, but it's the perfect way to start.
Okay.
In poetry theory, this is the concept of the opening energy. Imagine if she had started with something incredibly specific like, the red flower petal fell on the jade table.
That sounds pretty.
It is pretty, but it's restrictive. If you start there, where does the next person go? You've already zoomed in too close.
Ah, I see.
By saying something direct, blunt, and grounded, The wind blew tight. Fengji anchors the poem in the immediate reality of the weather.
It's like a wide-angle opening shot in a movie. She sets the scene without clogging it up with furniture.
Precisely. It leaves what the text calls wide open space for the poets who come after her. It's a great reminder that sometimes having the least technical training allows you to see the clearest picture.
The beginner's mind wins the round.
She isn't worried about showing off her vocabulary. She's just describing the truth of the cold wind.
I like that. So Fengji kicks it off, then Li Wan, the rice fragrance old farmer, which by the way is the best nickname in the book, she steps in to finish the couplet.
She writes, opening the door, snow still drifts.
Yeah.
And now the machine starts moving.
Right, they're following the order, at least for now.
For now,
Yeah.
you have Shangling, Tanchun, Li Qi, Li Wen, Xian. They all take their turns.
And if you look at the imagery in these early lines, there's a distinct progression. It feels like we're moving the camera lens.
We are. It starts very atmospheric. We have withered grass, cold mountains, frozen riverbanks. It's all about the harshness of the landscape outside.
But then notice how the human elements start to creep in.
We get village wine, incense, mirrors.
It goes from rough to fine. By the time Baoyu steps in, we are talking about gold mink furs and jade. It's becoming more domestic and luxurious.
It feels like they're warming up the poem just like they're warming up the room.
Exactly.
Right. And this is where that tension we mentioned earlier between order and chaos finally snaps.
It just breaks.
The polite, turn-taking structure cannot contain the energy in the room anymore.
This is where we enter the rap battle phase.
It really does become a battle.
Yeah.
The orderly taking of turns completely breaks down. Three characters basically hijack the poem. Xiangyun, Baoyu, and Dayu.
And Zhang Yun is the absolute ringleader here. The text describes her physically changing.
Oh, yeah.
She stands up, she's raising her eyebrows, straightening her back, she's not sitting politely anymore.
She is described as the aggressor. And the other characters joke that this is the venison factor.
Yes. They make a joke that she ate all that roasted deer meat earlier, and now she has too much energy.
It's like seeing a kid on a massive sugar rush.
But instead of running around screaming, she's screaming poetry.
It's a wonderful detail because it grounds this high intellectual activity in the body. She's fueled by protein and wine. She's manic. She's loud. And the text says she refuses to let others speak.
The dialogue of verses here is insane. They start snatching lines. One person barely finishes a rhyme before the other one yells out the next part.
The whiplash is hilarious.
At one point, they are talking about war. Schengen shouts about a general's gear, pass the padded coats for the troops.
And then almost instantly, someone pivots to poverty. They rhyme that with fishing in the rain in a straw raincoat.
And then it swings to domestic whimsy. There's a line about roasting taro and sweeping monks.
Roasting taro is such a cozy, humble image, and it's jammed right next to these high-concept historical references. It highlights the breadth of their knowledge.
You really have to know everything.
To play this game at this level, you have to know history, you have to know household management, and you have to know nature. There's a mention of the Ba Bridge, which is a classic historical reference.
And then immediately a pivot to something very small and personal. My favorite part is the physical comedy of it all.
Yes.
The source mentions that Xiangyun gets so excited she forgets to drink her tea. She's holding the cup, gets an idea, throws the cup down, and shouts the rhyme.
It creates this image of pure, unfiltered joy. And the imagery gets funnier and more obscure as they get more desperate for rhymes.
Right.
At the climax of this battle, Xiangyun is shouting about a sleeping crane on a stone tower.
And Dayu, who's usually the delicate, tragic one, counters immediately. She shouts back about a warm cat, specifically a brocade nest warming a pet cat.
It's such a brilliant contrast. Xiangyun gives you the cold, aloof, elegant crane in the snow.
And Dayu counters with the ultimate symbol of indoor comfort. A cat curled up in a fancy nest. It's the perfect checkmate image. Meanwhile, we have to talk about the main male protagonist, Baoyu. Where is he in all this?
He's failing.
What is he doing while the women are tearing this poem apart?
He's failing. But he's failing in a very specific, very charming way. He's just watching. The text says he finds the spectacle of them fighting Xingyun standing up, Dayu laughing, the sheer speed of it, So entertaining that he completely forgets to contribute,
He drops out of the exam because the show is too good.
which is a profound character moment for him. He appreciates the brilliance of these women more than he cares about his own performance.
He's not threatened by them being smarter or faster than him. He's delighted by it.
Exactly.
But eventually, even the venison-powered Xingyun has to stop.
They are running out of gas, and more importantly, they're running out of rhymes. We have to remember, they're using the Xiao rhyme scheme.
Which means...
These are words ending in sounds like Yao.
Yeah.
So imagine if we tried to do this in English, and we pick the sound round.
Okay. Round, sound, mound, ground.
Exactly. After about 10 of those, you are really scraping the bottom of the barrel. You start making up words or using really weird ones.
So they've exhausted the dictionary.
Pretty much. Bao Chai, who's usually the voice of reason, finally challenges Xiang Yun. She effectively says, "You've used up all the rhymes, there's nothing left."
And Xiang Yun's reaction is to just collapse. The text says she falls into Bao Chai's lap, laughing so hard she can't stand up.
It's such a human moment. You have this incredibly highbrow literary achievement ending with someone physically collapsing from laughter.
It breaks the barrier between high culture and just having fun.
It shows that for them, this is the party.
And that's when Li Wan and the judge, she steps in. She says, okay, that's enough.
Right, she wants to stop it before they start twisting words just to force a rhyme. She's preserving the integrity of the poem.
So the poem is done, but the party isn't, because now comes the judgment.
The evaluation. Li Wan looks at everyone's performance, and everyone passed.
Except Baoyu.
Except Baoyu.
He produced nothing. 0 lines. He's the guy who showed up to the potluck without a dish.
Which, in this circle, demands a penalty. You can't just sit there and enjoy the show. You have to pay for your ticket.
But the penalty isn't like drink 3 cups of wine or stand in the corner. It's a quest.
It is a quest. Li Wan spots red plum blossoms at the Green Lattice Nunnery, the Longquian. She decides Baoyu's punishment is to go out into the deep snow and fetch a branch.
Now, this seems simple enough. Go get flowers. But there's a massive interpersonal conflict hidden here, isn't there?
Oh, yes.
Why does Li Wan send him? Why doesn't she just send a servant?
Oh, this is where the social politics get juicy. Li Wan admits it openly. She says, "I want the flowers, but I hate the person who lives there." She's talking about Miaoyu, the nun.
Miai is complicated. She's not exactly a Sound of Music kind of nun.
Not at all. Miaoyu is incredibly arrogant, obsessed with cleanliness, and looks down on almost everyone. She's extremely difficult to deal with.
So Li Wan knows that if she goes there herself...
Miaoyu might be rude to her or refuse to give the flowers. There's a personality clash there.
So sending Baoyu is strategic. He's the diplomat.
It is. And notice what happens when Li Wan suggests sending servants with him to help carry the branch.
Dayu interrupts. She stops them immediately.
Right. Dayu says, "No, don't send anyone with him. If you send servants, it will ruin it."
Why does Dayu know that?
Because Dayu and Miaoyu are actually quite similar. They are both outsiders, they are both brilliant, and they are both proud. Dayu understands that Miaoyu is a snob.
Okay.
If a servant knocks on the door, Miaoyu won't even open it. She'll see it as an insult. But Baoyu is charming, he's gentle, and Miaoyu has a soft spot for him.
So Dayu is saving Baoyu from failure. It requires the personal touch.
Exactly. It's a subtle maneuver, but it shows how socially intelligent Dayu is. She knows exactly how to unlock the door.
And Baoyu is happy to do it. He's eager. It's better than writing poetry, I guess.
He loves being useful to them. And he probably loves the aesthetic of it. Walking into the white snow to get red flowers. It's a very romantic image.
There's this beautiful little moment before he leaves. Xiang Yun, who was just screaming poetry and throwing teacups,
Right.
grabs a wine pot and pours him a hot cup. She says he needs to warm up before facing the cold.
It's a lovely gesture of care. It reminds us that despite the competition, there is deep affection here. She's wild, but she's looking out for him.
So Baoyu heads out into the snow. Now, normally if someone leaves the party, you pause the game, you wait for them to come back.
But not this group. No, they are relentless.
They decide that while he is gone, the poetry must continue.
But with new rules.
Right.
Li Wan and Bao Chai look at the group and decide that the loud ones have had enough. Xiang Yun, Bao Qin, and Dayu, they dominated the linked verse.
They sucked all the oxygen out of the room.
So they're banned from the next round.
They are put in the penalty box for being too good. You guys sit down. You've had enough fun.
Essentially, Li Wan wants to give the quieter guest a chance to shine. So she assigns the next topic, red plum flower, to Xian, Li Wen, and Bao Qin.
Wait, Balkan gets to go again. She was just rhyming up a storm.
She does. It's a funny little detail. Lead one notes that Lee Ki isn't very good at poetry, so they let Baoyu step in as the third person to balance the team, even though she was active earlier.
After meritocracy, mostly.
Even in the quiet round, you need someone who can deliver.
And they don't let Baoyu off the hook either. Zhang Yun decides he has extra homework when he gets back.
Yes. When he returns with the flowers, assuming he gets them, he can't just relax and drink wine. He has to write a poem specifically titled Visiting Miaoyu to Beg for Red Plum Blossoms.
It's relentless. Go out in the freezing cold, charm a difficult nun who hates everyone else, haul back a tree branch, and then write a poem about it immediately.
And he has to do it while everyone else is judging him. But again, I think we have to realize this is their idea of fun. This isn't torture for them. It's the height of their social existence.
This is how they bond.
This is how they bond. Baoyu.
And he makes quite an entrance when he finally gets back.
He really does.
Yeah.
The text says he comes in smiling broadly, holding this branch up. And the description of the branch itself is just so key to the whole mood.
It's not just some pretty twig. No, it's about 2 feet high, with this long horizontal limb and these twisted dragon-like twigs. It's described as having flowers that spit rouge.
Okay, I have to stop you there. Spit rouge. That is such a visceral image.
It is.
Usually you hear flowers are blooming or glowing, but spitting, that feels aggressive.
It is aggressive, and that's the point. Rouge is a cosmetic, it's human, it's this artificial red. But spitting implies this burst of uncontrollable energy, almost a violence of color against the white snow. It sets the tone. This isn't a passive decoration, it's a statement piece.
And while he was out getting this statement piece, the girls back at the pavilion, his cousins, they weren't just waiting around.
No, they were competing.
This is the part that feels like a reality TV challenge to me. While he was gone, 3 of them, Xingxian, Li Wen, and Zhu Baokan, had already written poems on the theme Red Plum Flower. But they couldn't just write whatever they wanted, could they?
No, this is high society gaming. They were given constraints. They split the 3 characters of the phrase, red, plum, and flower. So Xingxian got red, Li Wen got plum, and Zhu Baokan got flower. And what's so fascinating is how their poems become these little personality tests. They reveal exactly where each girl stands in the family pecking order.
Let's unpack that. Because to a modern ear, they can just sound like, generic nature poems. But they're loaded. Let's start with Xingxian. She got red.
Okay, so context is key here. Xian is a cousin, but she's from a much poorer branch of the family. She's living in this palace, but she has no money. She literally has to pawn her clothes to get by. So her poem reflects that austerity. She writes about the plum blossom laughing at the east wind despite the cold. It's all about spirit over wealth.
There was that one line that stood out to me. She mentions green calyxes.
Right. She contrasts the red flower with green calyxes, emphasizing its beauty isn't flashy or ordinary. It feels like she's saying, I might not have your money, but I have backbone. I can survive the frost. It's a poem about dignity.
That's a powerful flex. Okay, then you have Lisha Wen. She was assigned plum. Her poem felt heavier, more somber.
It's intense. Like Wen is a widow, which in this society means a life of quiet resignation. She's socially dead, in a way. But her poem is surprisingly sharp. She says there's no hatred even if the heart turns to ash, a classic widow trope. But then she describes frozen faces having traces of blood.
Traces of blood. Wow, that got dark fast.
It did. It's a metaphor for the red flowers on the white snow, of course, but you can't ignore the violent language. It suggests a beauty that comes from deep pain. And it's a very different vibe from the third poem by Zhu Baokan.
Baokan had the character Flower. And remind us, she's the new favorite, right?
She is the absolute it girl. Young, gorgeous, from a wealthy merchant family. She's traveled the world. Her poem is pure luxury. She talks about spring makeup and red sleeves. It's vibrant, expensive, and just lively.
And she references Green River rafts.
Yes, which implies travel, freedom, leisure. It's a poem by someone who feels safe and celebrated. There's no ash or blood or frost. It's just abundance. It's the poem of a girl who knows she's loved.
And the group immediately noticed the difference.
Oh, yeah. The verdict was unanimous. They loved Balkan's poem. They praise her quick wit, her talent. It reinforces her status as the golden girl. And it shows that in this circle, effortless luxury is prized over gritty resilience. They liked the happy poem nest.
So the girls have crushed it. The bar is set incredibly high. And then there's Baoyu. He brought the flowers. He's the protagonist. And now he has to write a poem.
And he's sweating. He flat out admits he's intimidated by how good their poems are. And to make it worse, they don't just let him sit and think. They gamify it.
I love this detail. It's not just write a poem, it's write a poem before the time runs out. Tell us about the drumming.
So Xiang another cousin who's always full of energy, she acts as the timekeeper. She grabs a copper chopstick and starts hitting a hand warmer like a drum.
Wait, a hand warmer. Let's picture this.
Yeah, it would be a small metal vessel, bronze or copper, filled with hot coals. It would be resonant. So you get this sharp, metallic, rhythmic clang, clang, clang. And the rule is, if the drumming stops before he's done, he faces a penalty.
That is so much pressure. It's like a refined version of a ticking time bomb.
It really is. And he's trying to compose with this noise going on. He manages to write a poem about his trip to the convent. He uses imagery like seeking spring and asking for plums from the goddess of the moon. And there's a lovely line about having moss from the Buddhist temple court on his clothes.
That's a nice touch. It proves he was there, add the sensory detail.
Uh-huh.
But was it any good? How did the critics, his cousins, react?
They were polite.
Uh-oh.
They nodded and said it had some meaning.
Some meaning.
Yeah.
Ouch. That is the polite way of saying C-.
It is exactly that, a passing grade but not a triumph. And this is really important for his character. He's the appreciator of beauty, but he isn't always the sharpest intellect in the room compared to the women around him. He brings the flowers, but they write the best poems about them.
He's the muse fetcher.
Exactly. Not the master poet.
So the poetry slam wraps up, and then suddenly the maids rush in yelling, "The old lady is here!"
Enter Grandmother Gia, the matriarch, the absolute authority. And her entrance is a masterclass in power dynamics.
Paint the picture. How does a VIP arrive in a snowstorm?
She's in a small bamboo sedan chair carried by servants with a whole group of maids holding umbrellas to shield her. She's wearing a squirrel fur hood. I mean, she's in her 80s, but she's out in the freezing cold because she wants in on the fun. She refuses to be left out.
And she gives this command when everyone rushes to help her. She says, "Just stay where you are." She says, "I'm here to join in the excitement," but then warns them to act like she isn't there or she'll leave.
It's a total paradox, right? Ignore me or I'll leave. But you can't ignore the CEO when she walks into the break room. She wants to feel young, to be one of the kids, but her presence just shifts the entire gravity of the room. The game changes. It's no longer about poetry. It's about serving her.
And we see that immediately with the food. Like Wan, the widow we mentioned, she just shifts right into service mode.
Li Wan is fascinating here. She's the responsible one. She brings the matriarch a hand warmer, and then Grandmother Gia is served this very specific dish, pickled quail.
This detail blew my mind. Grandmother Gia asks for a leg, and Li Wan doesn't just hand her a plate.
No, she washes her hands and personally tears the meat off the bone for her.
With her bare hands.
It's a visceral demonstration of filial piety. It shows this deep level of intimacy and hierarchy. She doesn't wait for a servant. She does it herself to make sure it's perfect. It signals that the poetry stops, the drinking slows down. Everyone now revolves around the grandmother's comfort.
But Grandmother Gia, to her credit, she realizes she's kind of killing the vibe.
She does. She sees them all standing around looking stiff. She sees that poetry is hard work. So she says, basically, this seems exhausting. Let's do something fun. She suggests they switch to making lantern riddles for the New Year festival.
A pivot to party games. Smart move.
It is. She wants entertainment, not intellectual labor. She wants to laugh. But then she gets worried about the dampness in the pavilion. She says, "It's too cold here. Let's go to Shichen's room."
Shichen, the youngest cousin, the painter. Her room is called the Warm Scent Studio.
And the name is accurate. The text describes passing through heavy felt curtains and immediately feeling this warm fragrance brushing the face.
But this isn't just a social call. Grandmother Gia has an agenda. She wants to check on a project.
The painting, yes. Some time ago, she commissioned Shichen to paint the entire Grandview garden, a massive undertaking. And Shichen, well, she hasn't done much.
What's her excuse? Because it sounded pretty technical for a teenager putting off her homework.
It is surprisingly technical. Shichun explains that because of the freezing weather, the glue used in the paints has coagulated and become astringent.
Okay, pause glue in the paint.
Right, let's get into the chemistry. Traditional Chinese painting uses mineral pigments mixed with animal glue to bind the color to the silk. This glue is extremely temperature sensitive. If it gets too cold, it just gels up, it turns to jelly, it won't flow. So, it's too cold to paint is actually a valid excuse.
Okay, so she's not just lazy, But Grandmother Gia does not seem to care about the chemistry.
Not at all. She basically puts Shi-chun on a performance improvement plan right there. She says, I want this done by the new year. She even jokes that it's taking longer to paint the garden than it took to build it.
It's a funny jab, but there's a real deadline there.
There is, and you have to ask, why the rush? Why does an 80-year-old woman desperately want a painting of her garden finished now? It implies this desire to freeze time, to capture this moment of prosperity on canvas before it's gone. She wants proof this paradise existed.
Speaking of getting things done, we have to talk about the arrival of Feng Ji.
Wang Shifeng, the fiery, sharp-tongued manager of the house. She bursts in wearing a purple lamphor jacket, bringing this loud, fast, capable energy.
And she comes in with a joke. She says she thought the grandmother was hiding from creditors.
Classic Feng Ji, teasing the most powerful woman in the house. But the punchline is what's so revealing. The creditors were actually nuns who had come to ask for their annual allowance.
So Feng Ji's saying, don't worry, I already handled it.
Exactly. I paid them and sent them away. This one little scene shows us who she is. She handles the finances, the religious obligations, and she protects the grandmother from being bothered by the boring business of running an empire, and she turns the whole report into a comedy routine.
She manages the reality so everyone else can enjoy the fantasy.
That is her entire role. Without her, nobody gets to write poetry about plum blossoms. She is the engine room of this whole ship.
So, business handled, painting discussed. Now it's time for dinner. The group leaves the studio, and this is where we get the visual climax.
It's one of the most famous visual scenes in the whole novel. As they step out, they look toward a snowy hill, and there, standing in the snow, is Zhu Boqin.
The girl who won the poetry contest.
The very same. She's wearing a duck-down coat, made from the down of wild ducks, so it's iridescent and rare. And standing behind her is a maid, holding that vase of red plum blossoms.
The contrast must be stunning. The white snow, the wild-looking coat, the bright red flowers.
It's so stunning that Grandmother Gia just stops. She says, this looks exactly like the painting Double Beauties by Qi Shizu.
Life imitating art.
But then she corrects herself. She says it's better than the painting. She says the painting doesn't have such fine clothing or such a beautiful person. It's this moment where the reality of their wealth has actually surpassed art. They're living inside a masterpiece.
But wait, there's a reveal. Someone else appears.
Yes. From behind Baoyu, a figure in a scarlet felt cape pops out. It's Baoyu.
So now you have the red cape against the snow. That's iconic.
It is. It's vitality amidst the cold. But there's a plot twist.
Yeah.
Baoyu reveals why he was out there in the cold.
He wasn't just photobombing.
No. He had gone back to the Green Lattice Nunnery. He went back to the nun, Miaoyu, to get individual plum branches for everyone else.
That is surprisingly sweet. So he failed the poetry contest, but he won the Being a Thoughtful Friend contest.
Precisely. It brings us full circle. He started bringing one branch for the group. He ends it ensuring everyone has their own. It highlights his core trait, this deep empathy and a desire for everyone to be happy together.
Okay, let's shift scenes. We are stepping out of the cold and into the warmth of the Gia household. But honestly, don't get too comfortable.
Yeah.
Because while the fire is warm and the wine is heated, the social climate is, well, it's absolutely freezing if you don't know the rules.
That is a very, very fair warning right after this massive snow viewing party. And if you just glance at it, it looks so idyllic. You know, you have snow, you have poetry, you have family banter. It looks like a holiday card.
But underneath,
Yeah.
oh, it's a masterclass in social maneuvering. I was reading through these scenes, and it felt like watching high-stakes poker where everyone is smiling.
Yes.
We're talking about conversations about money that are disguised as jokes, a failed matchmaking attempt that happens almost entirely in code, and a riddle game that gets surprisingly dark.
It really is the ultimate guide to elite Chinese social dynamics. How do you show respect while, simultaneously showing off just how rich you are?
Exactly. And how do you reject a marriage proposal from the most powerful woman in the clan without actually saying the word no?
That's a big one.
And most importantly, and this is the part that really stuck with me, why is a riddle about a monkey the absolute highlight of the evening?
That is the big question.
So let's unpack this. We start in Grandmother Gia's room. It's the day after a big snow. They've just finished eating, and Aunt Chu arrives. Now, set the stage for us. And she was a relative, right?
Yep.
But she lives there.
Correct. Aunt Shu is Baotai's mother, one of the main female characters. She's family, but, technically she's a guest living in the Jia compound.
Uh-huh.
So she's in this tricky middle ground. She has to be comfortable, but she also has to be very, very polite.
And immediately there's this dance of politeness. It feels a little tense. And Shu starts off on the back foot.
She does. She apologizes right away. She says she wanted to host a party for Grandmother Jia to enjoy the snow yesterday, but she didn't.
Okay.
And her excuse is fascinating. She claims she heard Grandmother Jia wasn't in a good mood the day before.
Which feels like a classic, it's not you, it's me excuse, but in reverse. She's giving herself an out so she doesn't look cheap.
Exactly. It's pure face-saving. She's protecting her reputation as a generous guest.
I would have spent the money on you, but I was worried about your feelings.
Right. But Grandmother Jia, who is the matriarch and the social anchor here, she just dismisses it instantly. She says, "Oh, I wasn't in a bad mood. I was just playing with the children." And she points out it's only the first snow of the 10th month. Plenty of time for parties later.
So the door is open for a future party. And this is where it gets really interesting because Wang Shifeng Fengji jumps in.
Of course she does.
And when Fengji jumps in, I usually expect some sort of financial angle. She doesn't miss a beat.
Yeah. She's the household's financial manager, after all. She sees an opening, and she jokes that Aunt Sue should deposit 50 taels of silver with her.
Right now.
Right now.
Just to make sure she doesn't forget to host the party later.
Yeah.
Now, I want to pause on the number here. 50 taels. In the grand scheme of this household, is that a lot? Or is this like asking for $5?
Well, it depends on your perspective. For a servant, a few taels could be an entire year's wages. So 50 taels is a significant sum for a normal person.
Okay.
But for the Jia family, it's pocket change.
So asking for it isn't about the money.
No, not at all. It's the audacity of asking a guest for a deposit. It's a joke about trust. She's basically treating her aunt like a flight risk at a restaurant.
But look at how Grandmother Jia counters it. She doesn't scold Fengji for being rude. She joins the game.
She jumps right in. She says, if she gives you 50 taels, you and I should split it. 25 for me, 25 for you.
And then she says she'll pretend to be in a bad mood on the next snow day so they can just pocket the cash.
It's hilarious.
It is, but it also feels like such a flex. They're joking about embezzlement. They're joking about scamming their own guest.
It is a display of absolute power. They are the law in this house. They can joke about this stuff because they're untouchable.
Right.
But then Fengji pulls what I think is the ultimate power play. She laughs off the whole idea of taking Aunt Shu's money. She turns it back on the grandmother.
She says, our old ancestor is so sharp, she tries to see if Aunt Shu will loosen her purse strings. But since that didn't work, she turns it around on me.
And then she makes the offer. Fengji says she won't take Aunt Shu's money. Instead, she, Fengji, will pay for the wine and the party herself.
Wow.
And on top of that, she will give Grandmother Jia 50 taels of silver anyway.
As a penalty for being a busybody.
Exactly.
That is a massive flex. That's like, I'm buying the bar a round of drinks, energy, but multiplied by 10.
It absolutely is. I mean, think about what just happened socially. She turned a request for money into a display of immense generosity. She's basically saying, I am so wealthy and so capable that I will fund the party myself and pay a fine just to amuse you. It reinforces her position as the manager who can make problems disappear with silver.
It's almost aggressive generosity. Like, I can afford to lose this money just to make you smile.
It's weaponized wealth, and everyone laughs. It diffuses the tension, and it makes Grandmother Jia the center of attention. It's brilliant.
It's a great example of how money isn't just currency in this book, it's communication. But speaking of being the center of attention, the spotlight shifts pretty quickly to a newcomer, Baoyu.
Right, Baoyu. She's Suda Baotai's cousin, and she has made quite an impression in a very short amount of time.
Grandmother Jia seems obsessed with her. She references this moment where she saw Baoyu gathering plum blossoms in the snow. And she says it looked better than a painting. And then she asks the golden question. She asked for Baoyu's 8 characters.
And we really need to pause here again. For a modern listener, asking for someone's birthday details seems, innocent. Oh, are you a Pisces? But asking for the 8 characters? The Bazadi is very, very different in this context.
What does that actually mean here? Why is it such a red alert?
It refers to the specific year, month, day, and hour of birth. In traditional Chinese culture, these create a unique energetic signature. Matchmakers use them to calculate destiny, compatibility.
So it's not small talk.
It is the formal opening move in a marriage negotiation.
She isn't just curious. She is checking the data for a merger.
Precisely. And Anshu realizes immediately what is happening. Grandmother Jia wants to match Baokin with Baoyu.
The male heir, which is huge. Baoyu is the prize catch, structurally speaking, but there's a problem.
A very big problem. Aunt Shu has to let the matriarch down, and she has to do it gently. You cannot just tell Grandmother Jia no.
So how do you reject the CEO?
You say the contract is already signed with another vendor. Aunt Shu reveals that Baokin is already betrothed.
To the son of academician May.
Right. And notice the choreography here. Aunt Shu drops this information so casually. She doesn't say, you can't have her. She says, oh, speaking of her history, she's actually already promised to the May family.
It's so subtle. And notice how quickly Feng Ji reacts. She doesn't just say, oh, that's too bad. She stomps her foot. She sighs.
Yeah, she says she was just about to play matchmaker herself because they would have been a perfect pair.
It's so theatrical. It feels like she's covering for the grandmother again.
She is. By claiming that she, Feng Ji, wanted to make the match, she's validating Grandmother Jia's taste. She's saying, you were right, old ancestor. They would have been perfect. It's just bad luck.
It saves face for everyone.
Exactly. It treats the rejection as a twist of fate rather than a denial.
It's amazing how much work Feng Ji does in these scenes just to keep the vibes good. Now, aside from the matchmaking drama, I was fascinated by Baokun's backstory. And Shu explains why this girl is so unique, and it's pretty wild for a young woman in this era.
It is. She's a globetrotter. And Shu explains that Baokin's father was a trader who loved to travel, and he took his family with him.
He did.
She says Baokin has traveled to 4 mountains and 5 sacred peaks.
She specifically says she has visited 5 or 6/10ths of the world. That is a statistic you do not expect.
No, especially not for a young noblewoman who is usually, confined to the inner quarters. Think about the other girls. Dayu, Baochai, they live in this beautiful, very expensive cage.
Right.
They don't leave. Baokin has moved from province to province. She's seen the empire.
But there's a tragedy underlying that freedom, isn't there? It's not just a vacation.
Yes. Her father passed away, and her mother suffers from a phlegm disease, which is why she's staying with the Jia family now.
So she's this incredibly worldly figure. She has seen more of the world than Baoyu probably ever will. But she's also an orphan of sorts, relying on relatives.
Which fits perfectly with the aesthetic of the book. Beauty and tragedy often go hand in hand here. She's like a beautiful kite that has lost its string.
Speaking of aesthetics, let's talk about the morning after the snow party. The snow is cleared, it's a beautiful day, and Grandmother Jia has a task for the youngest sister, Shichen.
Poor Shichen. Grandmother Jia says, I want a painting of the Great Void scenery.
Which is the Grandview Garden, where they all live.
Yes, but she's very specific. She wants Shichen to capture yesterday's image Baokin and the servant girl with the plum blossoms, exactly as they appeared.
Do not get a single brushstroke wrong.
Yeah.
No pressure. Just paint a masterpiece from memory.
And Shichen is overwhelmed. The text says she falls into a daze just worrying about how difficult it will be. But she agrees because, well, she has to.
It feels like Grandmother Chia is trying to freeze time. She had a perfect day, and now she wants to own it forever.
That is a great observation. It shows the weight of her whims. What's a delightful memory for the grandmother becomes a massive work assignment for the granddaughter.
Yeah, she isn't asked if she wants to paint. She is commanded.
Exactly.
So, while Sijin is stressing out over her canvas, the rest of the family decides to kill time with a game. And this isn't just I Spy. This is Spring Lantern Riddles.
This is where we really see the intellectual level of these characters. And it's also where we see the class divide within the family. Li Wan starts it off. She and her cousins composed riddles based on the 4 books, the classic Confucian texts.
So to even play this game, you need to have a classical education. You can't just wing it.
Exactly. It excludes anyone who hasn't studied the canon.
Okay, hit us with the first one to give us a flavor.
Li Wan's riddle is, Guanyin has no hereditary line.
Guanyin being the bodhisattva of compassion. And the answer comes from Dayu.
Dayu guesses, though good, it cannot be proven. Or, in some translations, though good, no sign.
I see.
It's a line from the classics, but it puns on the idea that a deity like Guanyin doesn't have children or a lineage to, prove her goodness in that hereditary sense.
That is deep. It's almost theological.
It's very academic. Then there's another one about a pool of green grass, and the answer is pulu rushes or reeds.
But the one that really stood out to me, and I think it highlights the difference between our modern thinking and theirs, is the firefly riddle. I read this 3 times and still needed help.
Ah, yes. This was composed by Li Qi. The clue is just the word firefly.
And Baoyu guesses the character for flower.
Right. And at first glance, you think, what? How does firefly equal flower?
They have nothing in common. I was totally lost. But Dayu explains the logic, and it is wild. Walk us through this.
Okay, so first she asks, isn't the firefly just grass transformed? This references an ancient Chinese belief, almost a biological folklore, that rotting grass literally metamorphoses into fireflies during the summer.
Wait, really? So, step one, they believed grass turns into bugs.
Correct. So conceptually, a firefly is grass transformed.
Okay, I'm with you.
Step two, think about the Chinese character for flower, which is hua.
Okay, hua.
Hua means flower, but hua is also the verb for to transform or to change. So the riddle relies on biology, folklore, and etymology all at once. The firefly is the transformation, hua, of the grass. Therefore, the answer is hua flower.
Wow. And here I was proud of guessing the wordle in 3 tries. These teenagers are operating on a completely different level of linguistic density.
They really are. It shows how deeply they know their language and their myths. But this is where the social dynamics come back in. Bao Chai, who is always the pragmatic one, steps in.
She shuts it down.
Gently, but yes. She argues that these riddles are too academic. They're alienating Grandmother Jia. Remember, Grandmother Jia is sharp, she's witty, but she isn't a scholar of the classics like the girls are.
That's a good point. It's like quoting obscure memes at a family dinner where your grandma doesn't get it. It's rude.
Exactly. So Barchai suggests they make riddles about common, vulgar objects so everyone can enjoy them.
And vulgar here just means everyday stuff, right? Things you can touch.
Yes, material objects.
So this leads to the highlight of this segment. Xiangyan steps up. She's always a bit more spirited, a bit more unconventional, and she recites a poem for her riddle.
And the poem is surprisingly heavy for a party game. Let me read the key parts, she says. Separated from creeks and valleys, playing in the red dust. Fame and profit are void. Eventually, hard to continue.
Playing in the red dust. That's a Buddhist term, isn't it?
Yes. Red dust refers to the human world, the world of illusion, sensation, material attachments. It's the busy, noisy world of man.
So the guests are guessing all sorts of things. A monk, a Taoist priest, a puppet. Because the poem sounds so spiritual.
It does. It talks about leaving nature and finding that fame is empty. But Baoyu, who often sees things others don't, guesses it correctly.
It's a monkey. A performing monkey.
And suddenly, the poem makes perfect literal sense. Separated from creeks and valleys means the monkey was captured from the wild. Playing in the red dust means it's performing in the city streets for crowds.
But what about the last line? Eventually hard to continue.
That's the punchline, and it's a bit gruesome. Xiangyan explains, what performing monkey hasn't had its tail chopped off?
Oh.
Hard to continue is a pun on the tail being cut short.
And the room explodes in laughter.
They love it. They think it's diabolically clever. But if we step back and look at this as modern readers, it is jarring.
It really is. You have this poem that sounds like a lament for the human condition, chasing fame and profit in the red dust and finding it void. And the answer is a mutilated animal performing for scraps.
It bridges that gap between high philosophy and what they called vulgar reality, but I think it acts as a very subtle foreshadowing.
How so?
Well, think about where they are. They are in this luxurious home, protected from the cold, playing in the red dust. They are performing high culture. But the text is constantly reminding us that fame and profit are void.
So just like the monkey.
Exactly. Just like the monkey, they're performing, but there's a cost. They're trapped in the city, away from the creeks and valleys of nature, and their tail, their lineage, or their luck might be cut short eventually.
That is a chilling thought for a snowy afternoon game.
It's the brilliance of the book. It hides the deepest truths in a joke about a monkey. It makes you laugh, and then 10 chapters later, you realize why you should have been crying.
Now the game continues. We have Bai Chai, Baoyu, and Dayu all reciting poems for their riddles. But the text sort of leaves us hanging on their answers.
Right, the focus stays on the flow of the game, not every single answer. But then Baokin, our world traveler, decides to drop the mic.
The grand finale. She says that because she has traveled so much, she's composed 10 nostalgia poems based on 10 historical sites she has visited.
Which is an impressive feat in itself. 10 poems, 10 sites.
But there is a twist. Each poem hides a common object.
So she's combining her unique worldly experience with the vulgar object rule Bao Chai established. She's bringing the outside world, the real world of history, and travel into the inner chambers of the Jia household.
And the group is hooked. They ask her to write them out so they can guess. And that is where our source text leaves us on the precipice of these 10 mysteries.
It's a perfect cliffhanger.